Hello, this is Bill Baldwin of Boulevard Realty with an update on flood maps. Please be aware that the Harris County flood maps are about to change. In fact, the way flood maps will be determined is totally new and revolutionary. Make yourself aware of the process and the timeline at Map Next. Map Next stands for Harris County Modeling, Assessment, and Awareness Project, the first of its kind in the nation. It's the next generation of flood mapping using new methodologies, new technology, and new data. The new maps will be released in early 2025, and thousands of homes in Harris County are expected to be added to both the 100 and 500-year floodplains. Likewise, many homes may no longer be in the 100 or 500-year floodplains. After the announcement, there will be a period of 6 to 9 months of education and input. The adoption is not likely until late 2025 at the earliest. Please keep up to date and refer to Map Next on the Harris County Flood Control website.
HAR TV has expanded, and we're now offering video services at 4 locations. Our Fort Bend branch located at 6608 Greatwood Parkway in Sugar Land. Our Montgomery County branch located at 25700 I-45 North in Spring. Our Bay Area branch located at 17225 El Camino Real in Bay Area, and our original location at HAR Central located at 3693 Southwest Freeway in Houston. All 4 locations offer all the same high quality video production that you have always experienced here at our central location. Contact us today to get your video appointment scheduled at any one of our 4 locations.
As realtors, we help our clients with all sorts of matters, including how to find available resources that may assist with the down payment. We are proud to announce that Down Payment Resource is now available on HAR.com. This will allow consumers to find out if they meet the criteria for any of the 70 different assistance programs available in the greater Houston region. Some programs are income-based, but many allow higher incomes than you may think. There are also programs specific for people in certain professions, such as police officers, firefighters, teachers, healthcare workers, and others. About 89% of all listings for sale in Houston qualify for some sort of down payment. To find out more, you may visit www.har.com/down payment and work with your realtor to make sure you have everything you need to be able to purchase the home of your dreams.
Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I'm pleased to be joined this morning by HAR's MLS Project Manager, Nathan Goebel. Welcome back to the program, Nathan.
Always a pleasure to be here, Christina.
Thank you so much. Before we begin today's show, though, I do want to mention that today's show is sponsored by Oakberry Trails. Wake up knowing the day ahead brings an easy commute, and that coming home means closer to getting to nature. At Oakberry Trails, you'll find yourself tucked away in the countryside, yet moments away from your favorite craft brewery and brand name shops. You can visit oakberrytrails.com for more information. Nathan, we're so happy to have you here today. I love getting updates from you, just, a couple times a year, however often you're willing to come visit with me. But we did have some updates aside from Matrix that we wanted to get into regarding listing scams. Now, I know this is something that's not new. It's been around for quite some time. And you, as our MLS project manager, you pay close attention to it. We really appreciate that. So we'll definitely talk about that today, as well as some Matrix updates. But before we get into any of that, Nathan, for anyone that's tuned in this morning that doesn't know who you are yet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I've been with HAR for just over 22 years. I am the project manager and quality assurance manager for HAR. And my primary responsibilities are any project that is related to the MLS, software development and implementation, as well as enforcing the rules and regulations for our members and leading the quality assurance department.
Excellent. Thank you. And you said leading the quality assurance department. That's a big job there that you're doing.
It really is.
Which we definitely talk about later. We'll talk about some MLS rules and maybe help people, guide them on some of the most commonly violated. But just the reporting alone and the following up and all of that, your team is always busy, right?
Oh yeah, I have an amazing team that does, that goes above and beyond with our members and handling the complaints and the how-tos and just making sure that the system is running smoothly and that the rules are being enforced fairly. I have a team of 10 and we spend just about all of our day with various members taking care of these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, we thank you for that. And I'm sure the people that are tuned in this morning maybe they're very familiar with some of our staff. I know sometimes I see their names getting shouted out online as well. Well, let's dive into it because, I know you work closely with me with the HAR Safety Task Force, but you also work with the risk management groups and other advisory groups to kind of alert them as to some of these things like listing scams so that we can better inform and prepare our members and help them protect their listings. Tell us, what are you seeing right now as far as listing scams are concerned?
Well, the three most common listing scams, two of them have been around for quite some time, and one is the newer one. So starting with the older ones, wire fraud continues to be prevalent in our industry. The scammers are always wanting to try and get in between the transaction and try and get the buyer to wire their funds to a different location than where it's supposed to go. And the best thing that can be done there is continuing to be aware, be vigilant, educate your buyer because that they're still trying and they're trying as hard as they can. The second one is the seller scam, the fake seller scam, and this is something that came to the forefront about 3 years ago during COVID when we were more remote, and you were in engaging with sellers in a more remote fashion. And what happened is that scammers would impersonate a seller who owned land. No, it's almost always land, and they owned it outright, and they've owned it for many, many years. And what they would do is their goal is to try and get you to list it on the MLS. And then if they can get it onto the MLS, they very quickly will make price changes that'll greatly reduce it. And then they'll accept just about any offer because just like the wire fraud, their goal is to get a buyer to send them cash for property they don't own. And in the MLS, we're trying to prevent that from happening so that it doesn't lead into a deed fraud situation. Impersonation, of course, is a crime, but the larger crime of the wire fraud and then the deed fraud is what is far more of a concern than it is inside of the MLS. The final scam.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
The final scam is the rental scam, and that's the oldest one in the book. It's like the classic cash for keys scam, where they say you send me money for the deposit and the first month's rent, and then when I receive your money, I'll mail you the keys. And this happens in a couple ways, either by just a regular thing maybe on the side of the road, or you'll see it in like a Craigslist posting where the price is just too good to be true, and it almost always is.
It's tough, and thank you for sharing those with us, Nathan. It's really tough, and when you hear some of these, because especially with the rental scams, I know that you mentioned during COVID that people were a victim to this because we were kind of confined at home, but also I've witnessed this firsthand with there being a language barrier sometimes as well. I know there were several times in recent years that a consumer would come up to the HAR office and they would just be confused because they've just written a check to somebody and they thought they were renting a property and they weren't. So that is really scary. So is it highly technical what they're doing, or are they just using public information to scam people?
They're really using public information. All the information that they use in basically almost all three of these is available freely and widely is, they go to HCAD or they go to Montgomery County Appraisal District, and they look for properties that have been around for a long time, and they prey on foreign cultures. They prey on people that if they can identify the owner as being an older person. That is probably the second most targeted group after the language barrier, because it's it's easier to confuse, it's easier to manipulate, and so that's what they're targeting, and they're always looking to make sure it's owned outright or been owned for a long time, and that's easy to verify on any site. Now, HAR.com doesn't show that, but the appraisal districts all show when someone took ownership of a property, and then the pictures and descriptions. They're on hundreds of websites that can be repurposed, and sometimes they don't even use the right pictures because they're just trying to get a picture.
Yeah. So what are some ways that listing agents can better protect their listings against listing scams in particular?
In that, it's going to be, awareness is key. For the fake sellers, demanding a video call is probably one of the best deterrents, because these scammers want to talk to you on the phone. They want to chat with you on WhatsApp. They want to do anything that doesn't involve a visual confirmation of who they are versus who they're trying to be. So then in lieu of that, if the video call, they won't do it, and you're still trying to see if this lead is a legit lead, because sometimes maybe they could be. That's where the number one tool that we recommend, and I know you've recommended it many times, is Forewarn. Using Forewarn, taking the name that they're giving you, taking the phone number that they're giving you, and running it through Forewarn to see what's returned. They're obviously not using the phone number of the actual owner. There's no way that they can do that. So running that through and seeing what's returned should normally return red flags. But the video call has also been a great deterrent, because a lot of times they just disappear after you ask for the video call.
Yeah, they're wise to that one. Well, good. And that's a good deterrent. Now, as far as buyers are concerned, and when it comes to the wire fraud you mentioned, is, again, obviously you need to be aware so that,
right,
you even know what's going on. But is this something that you alert a buyer to maybe at the beginning of a transaction to let them know that these things exist?
Well, that's what should be one of the first conversations you have with the buyer, is about wire fraud, and explaining to them clearly the steps involved in wiring money in this transaction. Let them know that any email that they receive that's giving them wiring instructions, they should call you immediately. To discuss that email further. They should never take any action based on an email they receive that's related to wiring. They should either call the title company or call the agent and verify all that information before. I would tell them, don't click on a link, don't open an attachment that has any email information that once you see wiring, that should be, I would train a buyer that they see the word wire or wiring in an email to stop right there. And then contact their realtor or contact the title office and confirm the information, because most times, if not all times, that's not how you receive wiring instructions.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that my realtor did was text me whenever they sent me an email. I would also get a text. So if I did get an email and there was no text, I kind of knew, wait, what's going on here, right? So, and that never happened. So that's good. One comment that came in, because we're talking about agents, better protecting their listings. A comment that came in from Doreen: don't use combination lock boxes in regard to protecting the listings. Do you have any comments on that?
As far as I can promote it, I recommend using a super lockbox. Once a combo is out there, it's out there. And there's nothing to stop someone from sharing it with their friends or sharing it to an online group or anything, and then everyone has access to that home. With Supra, of course, every entry has to be done by a Supra e-key. And if you don't have an e-key, you're not getting in the house. And even if you're not an MLS subscriber, there's a call before showing code that some people can get to do a one-time access to a property, and that gets you around needing a lockbox, or a combo box. And I will never use a combo on my house. With everything that I know, that's just too easy to create a fake listing and then even use your own original media as the scammer, because they could go in with their own camera and take their own pictures, and then it makes it even harder to tie anything together.
Yeah. Yeah, great points. Thank you so much. Another comment that came in from Claudia, she said, don't call the number on the email. So I guess that's also in regard to those emails that you might be getting. If that number on there is different from my number that you have, right? Or or something like that, then don't call that number. Any other comments there, Nathan?
No, it's just reiterating that whole thing with the email. You receive an email, you should call your realtor is who you should call and ask about the anything on it. I would trust nothing that comes in email about wiring, unless like it was in your case, if my realtor immediately texted me and said, hey, American Title just sent this, and I have an email that's from American Title, then I still might call American Title and ask them to verify, is this email from you? Because I don't want to make that mistake. You have less than 72 hours to recover wire fraud once it's initiated, and that's I don't know. I'm 45, and I can tell you that 72 hours feels like an hour.
Yeah,
that's too quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if there are any other suggestions that you have on ways that you are protecting your listings, type those into the comments. We'd love to see them. You mentioned Forewarn already, and Jackie said that it happened to her. She checked Forewarn and the name and phone number matched. So yeah. And Yuko said, what did I miss? Well, Yuko, you can go back at the end of this and watch the beginning, because we've mostly been talking about listing scams. Now, something else, as a homeowner myself, is there anything that homeowners can do to protect themselves or protect their properties against potential listing scams?
Well, it's not foolproof, but you could create a Google alert. You could go to google.com/alerts, and you can make an alert on your address. And if you have an improved home, the likelihood of a listing scam is kind of low, but still it's good to know when a new page pops up that's related to your address, especially if you see it and you're like, I don't know why my address is showing on this website. So then you go to that page and you inspect to verify that it should be there. And you can set that up to be notified as it happens, or once a day or once a week, so that you're not bombarded in case you have a very common address. But for land, this isn't the most helpful because a lot of people don't have a street number to begin with. So it's just, it's something that, we talked about at the safety task force a couple weeks ago, and I looked into it, and Montgomery County actually has something that I do recommend. It's called Fraud Sleuth. And if you go to Montgomery County clerk's office, you can actually sign up to be notified when there's deed activity related to your property. And so it's automated, so you don't actually have to continually look. So, I live in Harris County, so if I want to see if there's any deed activity related to me or my home, I have to go, once a week, once a month, and just go put my name in and see if I don't recognize anything. And that's going to be something that, for those that are concerned, it takes 30 seconds to go to the website, put your name in, and see what comes back. I checked this morning, and thankfully nothing's happened with my home. But I would encourage other counties to adopt what Montgomery County has put into their system, because it should be something that is automated for homeowners and property owners to be able to be aware of what's going on with what many would call their most prized possession.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. Great suggestions there. And a couple other things I wanted to mention. Laura says she uses ChatGPT as a resource to verify information. Teresa Hill agrees with you. Check your CAD record on a regular basis. A question here from Carmen about Forewarn. Does Forewarn work in other states?
I would say that it's nationwide. It's a full comprehensive scan of wherever that number exists. It's going to provide information back.
Yeah. Just some clarification. Pamela was asking the information that you said in Montgomery County, in the Montgomery County website. She's asking, does it work for Harris County? And Diane Moore said, I believe Fort Bend does it as well. So it does not work in Harris County as of right now.
They have not adopted it. So it's something like, if you live in Harris County, I would encourage you to reach out to a county commissioner and ask them, if they're looking into adopting this kind of product, encouraging them to recommend this kind of product, because we don't want these sort of things to happen. In the seller scam, the few that we've seen actually go all the way through, it becomes a litigation nightmare for all the parties involved, because normally the listing brokerage gets sued, the title company gets sued, and if there's any notaries that they can identify as real people, they get sued as well, because that landowner wants their property back. And you've got to undo the deed that's been put on the county file, and you've got to unprocess everything that passed through. And if we just had something to alert us the moment something happens, that would be ideal.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Nathan. A quick question, and then I want to talk about what you should do, how you should report these as well. Sure. There's a question that came in from Claudia. I have had applicants try to fake their rental history when applying for a listing. What are ways besides asking for the supposed landlord's report? So I don't know if you have any thoughts there on this.
That's a little more difficult. I could say look into products like Rent Spree or My Smart Move, and use these kind of digital tenant screening products so that they're not able to just fabricate their own information. Beyond that, that would be what I would recommend.
Absolutely. So what should you do, or how should you report if you find that your listing is on Craigslist, or that you have been made victim to one of these listing scams?
So for Craigslist, it's not 100% because it's kind of an automated system they have. Above every posting on Craigslist is a flag, and that's to flag it as prohibited. And what we have found is that the hive attack on fake or fraudulent postings on Craigslist can work. And so what you do is, if you identify a rental scam, you copy that link and you send it to your chat group or to all of your friends or all of your realtors and say, hey, click the flag button, because the more flags are checked from different IP addresses, the higher the likelihood that Craigslist is going to automatically remove that without anyone having to do anything further. There is a contact us inside of Craigslist that you can use to report a scam, but your mileage may vary. Sometimes they respond. It is a huge website that has millions of postings, so you can just understand that they may not be the most responsive, but you can try it, and then you can at least tell your client that you are doing everything you can to combat it. Yeah,
excellent. Well,
as far as the fake sellers, I'm sorry, I almost skipped it. If you're a fake seller or you identify a property that is being impersonated, I would notify the MLS immediately. If it's still listed, and get the information to mlsqa@har.com. If anyone has been defrauded, they should actually contact their local authorities and report it to the FBI. And you can go to ic3.gov. That is the Internet Crimes Complaint Center for the FBI for you to report cybercrimes. And then that'll open up a case for it to be looked into and investigated. The MLS's objective would only be to remove the listing from the MLS so that no one else may potentially be defrauded, and we would cooperate with the authorities if anything is required from us.
Very good. So those websites, for anyone that missed them, and I'm sure somebody can put them in the chat for us, ic3.gov, and then somebody was also asking about the Google alert. It's just google.com/alerts. So very good suggestions there, Nathan. Thank you so much. And Veda just commented, great information. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit to talk more about Matrix, MLS rules, and all of that good stuff. So, we often see, especially I see them on social media all the time, suggestions for various Matrix features, or new search queries or things like that. So how are those different suggestions reviewed and then sometimes also implemented?
So this is one of my favorite topics, and it's because it all starts with someone speaking up. An email, a chat message, a phone call, or even a social media post on, say, the Platinum page. It's once a suggestion is received, it is going to be added to a list that will be reviewed by the MLS advisory group. And over the years, I've seen thousands and thousands of things that we now have as a result of someone saying something. And it's the old adage, right? If you see something, say something. And that's what we want from you so that we can make those changes or look at making those changes. The MLS advisory group will review. That's a board of your peers. They're all practicing in real estate. It's not staff that are reviewing these suggestions, and they vote on it to move it forward. And if that's approved, then it goes to HRIS for final approval, and if need be, legal counsel to ensure that we can legally do whatever it is we're looking to do, specifically normally with rules and regulations when those are being revised. After that, it's only after that that staff work on a timeline and an implementation plan to enact and make that suggestion a production product for members to use. As far as there are some features, though, that are beyond our control. Okay. And the reason why is that we have many vendors that we're working with. And in some of those vendors' products, they have technical limitations. And so you may have a great idea that, I would love to see happen, but there's just no way it's going to happen because of the technical limitations of that product. Or it's just not feasible for how much effort it may take to make such a feature exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's funny sometimes because I know there have been times where I will share a suggestion with you and your response is, I wish we could do that too, because like you said, we are limited on some things by the vendors, but it's really good to know. Thank you for going through that process, because I do see that a lot. And especially we'll talk about the new MLS rule in just a little while, but one of the comments I continue to see is, why did HAR do this? Or why did HAR decide to do this? And yes, HAR as a whole, I guess you could say, but that includes our members and our volunteer members who sit in the room and review these things. And the staff just come in, like you said, on the actual implementation part.
I'd love to add to that is that, just because something is implemented doesn't mean that that's the final version, or in some cases that it's going to continue to exist. I mean, I've seen features come and be pulled back months later when the members decided, made a loud announcement and submitted it through the proper channels to the MLS advisory group. Or we've actually seen things that were technically not possible years later become possible. There was a time when our members were asking to upload images to incomplete listings, and it wasn't possible. And they asked us, and 5 years later, suddenly it was possible. And we never stopped asking that question. We just put those things that can't be done on the back burner and ask our vendor once a year, can you do it now? Can you do it now? and see if they eventually change their mind. And in a lot of cases, they do.
Yeah. Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet?
Exactly.
Very, very good. So let's talk about recent changes. What recent changes have been made in Matrix?
So the big thing is what we're still working on it right now, but the big thing is we made the Netris key share announcement in February, and that was to allow our members to be able to open any lockbox in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. The only associations that wouldn't apply in that case would be Abilene and Northwest Louisiana. And before I get ahead of myself, Netris is the North Texas Real Estate Information Services. It is a regional MLS that provides an MLS to 14 associations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is the third data share that we're working on. We completed San Antonio in 2023, Austin in 2024. Dallas is our 2025 goal to get that added into our system, and we're now working on the data share to deliver that later this year. The other feature that we enabled, and this is in Realist, so you might have to go over there to check it out, is there's a new feature called Cell Score. And Cell Score is a algorithm that CoreLogic has used to kind of give a rating to what's the likelihood this person might sell their home in the next 6 months. And anything over, like, say, an 830, score goes up to 1,000. They're probably imminent. And when I checked it last night in a certain area that I farmed just to see how it was working, many of the properties that scored over 830 were already on the market. Wow. So it's kind of like a confirmation of its algorithm that's the case. So you should check out Cell Score, use it with your farming, and see if you could target to those listings that aren't on the market but have a high Cell Score to solicit if they're interested in selling in the near future.
Yeah, if you're ever doing that farming, then use that to guide you in the process and make it a little bit easier, maybe a little faster,
right?
To find properties that could be selling soon.
And to reiterate that was a suggestion that a member had been asking for 3 years in a row. And in 2022 we couldn't do it, and finally at the end of 2024 the vendor made the field a searchable feature. Before that, you had to look at every individual tax record and see what their score was, and that was a very tedious exercise. And we're all trying to use our time as efficiently as possible, so we're very happy to have that live.
Yeah, great. Are there any updates on the horizon that you can tell us about?
Yes. So, we've been working on the modernization of Matrix. When we first rolled out Matrix in 2017, it was based on code from 2007. So we're trying to get it to not be 20 years old, and we're making this responsive design across the entire system. And there's only a few areas that are left, and that would be the CMA. And so we're bringing out a new CMA, probably in the next couple months, that is going to be completely modernized. It's going to have a different look to it. It's going to be completely native inside Matrix, and will still work on all of your browsers and different sizes and resolutions. And then next year, which getting further down the line, there is a new ad edit that is in development, and so we'll be taking a look at that. Austin recently went live with it, so we're monitoring their members' feedback to see how it's being received. And to that end, we have heard our members on the photo module, or the photo section of ad edit, being probably the most painful part of the process when you're making a new listing. And so we are working with technology to try and address that problem. And hopefully we'll have something to communicate about that later this year.
Excellent. And whenever those updates are made, HAR automatically updates our Matrix classes to teach that new information, correct? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. I wanted to take just a second because we had a few questions come in and a couple comments as well. A question here from April. NAR has made changes to clear cooperation policy. Can you let us know how this is going to be affecting us?
Well, the good news is that Bob has talked about that in his past two insights. And if you don't read Bob's email, I highly encourage you to do. It is filled with wonderful information that is kind of summarized and shortened, so that it's like 8 or 9 articles of information that you can read in probably 45 seconds. And one of the things he talked about was the new clear cooperation policy. The MLO is the acronym that you're hearing about, their multiple listing selling option. Which allows for delayed marketing to IDX or Office exclusive. And the good news is that we've effectively already addressed both new options. Delayed marketing is coming soon, or private per seller, depending on which way you're wanting to go. And coming soon gives you 21 days before it's shared to IDX. Our coming soon status is not something that is an IDX available status. It's only on VOW. And then private per seller is not shared to either. And then for Office exclusive, that's always been the HAR 300 form, and you don't put it into the MLS. Of course, public marketing still applies. So if you do any public marketing, it is going to trigger the clear cooperation policy. So then you would still have to put it on the MLS, but you would then have the option of determining coming soon or private per seller before you go full active.
Okay, very good. Is there going to be any updates to the 300 form?
Yes, there will be updates to the 300 form. The NAR made that announcement, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the deadline for MLSs to comply with the update is September 30th. Our goal is to have something before then, but we're going to make sure that the changes to the HAR 300 form are compliant with all the changes that NAR has issued. And we will have an announcement from our communications department when the HAR 300 form is updated and compliant with all of the new changes.
Excellent. Thank you. And Kevin just wanted, if you could reiterate, where was the cell score found that you mentioned?
So it's in Realist. It's in Realist. So it may not be a default field when you go to create your search. You may have to add it, and you'll look for the field called cell score. And you can add it, I believe, both as a search field and as a column on the display grid inside of Realist, so that you can easily see the properties and their scores.
Very good. Thank you for that, Nathan. So let's talk about the new MLS rule regarding showing cancellations. Obviously, again, I'm watching our social media, a lot of members talking about it. Some people, excited about it. Some people maybe don't quite fully understand it. So let's, if you could, tell us about the new rule and maybe the idea behind the rule and why that was voted on.
Certainly. So the new rule is 2.0.1, which is the showing cancellation requirement, that if you are going to have to cancel a showing, you need to do so before the end of the showing window. So you have all the way to the end of the showing window. And this is where I interject on my own script here and say, just like we said earlier, if the rule needs to be revised or changes need to be made, reach out to the MLS Advisory Group, or send me an email, or harfeedback@har.com, and say how you think the rule should be tweaked to make it a better rule for it. But the purpose behind the rule is to address the rise in these no-show, no cancellations that are occurring, and the inconvenience it's presenting to a homeowner. And in many industries, you make an appointment. When you cancel it, you have to cancel the appointment. And until this rule was in place, you technically didn't have to. It was professional courtesy. I'm sure the majority of our members were canceling appointments in a timely manner, because that's what, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And that was working. Well, apparently in some areas it's not. And someone spoke up to the MLS Advisory Group, presented the issue, and the rule was considered and adopted. And I can tell you, because I checked it last night, it's been a rule now for 12 days, which means it's still in its infancy and members are still becoming aware of the rule. But we've only received 25 complaints. And 25 may seem like a large number to anyone that doesn't process fines or violations, but there have been 50,000 showings in that same time span. And so the real impact here is to serve as a deterrent to those that aren't, and make them aware that you need to be canceling your appointment, to let them know that you're no longer going to show it. Not after the appointment's over, and maybe down the road that'll be tweaked, but before the showing's over, you need to let them know you're not going to make it.
Yeah, makes sense. So what feedback are you seeing and hearing from our members on the new rule?
So it's across the board, like you said, and with any rule that we've ever adopted historically, it's normally an across the board. When you have a membership of 45,000 members, the odds of 100% or even 90% are almost unattainable. In the past, I remember we adopted a rule for model homes to be allowed on new construction images, and many of our members were happy with it, and some were very upset. And once everything calmed down and cooled off, the rule hasn't been modified, and that's kind of what I'm expecting here. There may be a few tweaks, but the feedback has been generally positive. There have been some threads that have been asking about concerns and asking about how this is going to be worked, and I can assure you myself, as the person who's been enforcing rules for 22 years, it is not our objective to create a new fine revenue channel. And as far as the energy we put into it, it almost washes out. When the member complains, they have to provide the showing report. They have to provide their lockbox serial number if they have a Supra. Then we have to go and review the two pieces together and compare it. And then the showing agent does have an opportunity to respond and give their side and give their piece. And if they can send us something that shows they did try to communicate, a screenshot or anything that shows an attempt at communication, that's going to be enough for us to call it a wash in that case. Because we aren't just one-sided when it comes to any of our rules that we enforce. We receive a complaint, and then we issue the notice or the fine, and then we hear what the respondent has to say, and then make a final conclusion from there.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and questions and scenarios are flooding in, as I'm sure you can imagine. So, and many of which we've heard, and you actually already addressed a few. For example, Naomi was saying, if there's no showing service being used and it's a text agent situation, how do you cancel? Is a text sufficient? So yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, your department is ready and willing to work with our members on this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In both sides, it's not like we're just here for listing. We're here for all agents. We're here for every agent. It does not. There's no differentiation in the quality assurance department for who we're assisting and how. And as far as the communication, it's just like the TREC requirement. TREC doesn't identify when you have to respond back to someone who's communicated with you. They don't say what method you have to respond back. They just say that you have to communicate. That's the same thing here, is that you just have to communicate. And I would do it in a way that is something that you can show proof. I mean, even making a phone call, if you're on a cell phone, that call is logged. So you have your evidence.
Absolutely. A couple questions, and I know this is a very common one that you and I've both seen. So I want to present it here because I do keep seeing it come up. Does this apply to vacant listings as well?
It depends on if there's an appointment required. So it's not even so much about a vacant listing as do they require appointments. If it's a show and go where you just have to go and go to the property whenever you want, there's nothing to enforce. So this really applies to properties that require appointments to go. So it could apply to a vacant property, although, again, coming back to thinking it through, the odds of an agent on a vacant listing reporting anything is probably pretty low, because this is really more about an inconvenienced homeowner. That's where the root of this rule is from a homeowner that has to pack up and leave or do something to the home to make it show ready, and then nothing happens. That's where this complaint is really rooted in.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Claudia's point here as well, you're saying it's both sides, right? The listing agent really should ensure that the information they're putting in for their listings, whether they're using Showing Smart or something else, that they're putting in the correct information. She has an example here of listing agents marking a property as vacant when it's not actually vacant, for example. It's really important that when you're inputting that listing that you are making, not just checking boxes, you're going through and making sure that you put correct information. So great point there, Claudia, to bring it up. And like Nathan said, in those situations that can be reported as well. So thank you for that. A couple of other things I wanted to mention, and there's just a scenario here that CJ mentioned. She said she had an agent schedule a showing 4 different times and never showed or canceled, nor did they respond when she would reach out. It's instances like that agents should be held accountable.
Absolutely. That's I mean, yeah. Reading through the complaints, I mean, you could tell that patience was burned before the listing agent complained. Because obviously the listing agent's primary objective is to sell the home, not to monitor who shows up on time. And seeing that sort of thing, like the 4 showings and no one ever appeared, that's exactly what this rule's for.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Well, a few other questions coming in. I know we're over time already, Nathan, but hopefully we can hang on to you for a few more minutes because I do want to try to answer a few of these. Nancy was just asking, could you please explain the requirements for a go and show? I've always felt an appointment was still needed. I want a record, but it's an automatic approval. I've been told this is incorrect. So can you verify exactly what go and show should be?
Well, that's going to be a subjective explanation. And so it's going to vary depending on the broker or the agent or the franchise, really. And so in my mind, a go and show doesn't have appointment required on the listing. So when the showing instructions on the MLS listing, if it doesn't have an appointment required selected on there, then that should indicate and mean that there's not an appointment required to show the home. If you want to have a log of it, you can certainly do what you need to do to have a log of it. If they're using a Supra, that's going to be the log. If there's a combo, then I can understand why you might want to do that. But that's my interpretation of go and show, is that it doesn't say appointment required in the MLS, which to me should indicate that it's clearly able to be shown at any time. And the reason why that is more important to me is because the previous rule that we still have, which is 2, which is showings without an appointment, that you can't show a home without an appointment, period, and you have to get it confirmed. The key to that violation is that you must have appointment required selected in your showing instructions, or we can't enforce the rule. And so that's my way of interpreting go and show. But check with your broker is what I would always say. Your broker is paramount when it comes to understanding what go and show is to them, and possibly any E&O coverage. You want to make sure that you're not overstepping.
Okay, very good. Kind of a question here that I have not seen before, but I think it kind of goes to show just some of the explanation that might be needed around MLS rules. Lottie said, real estate brokers are considered self-employed. Will rules blur the line between self-employed and W-2 employees? So we've had MLS rules forever, Nathan, but how does that line, does that line get blurred in your opinion, or what?
No.
What is the reasoning or rationale behind having these rules?
Well, the rules are a way of allowing everyone to behave in a community in an equal manner. that we all agree to the same rules. And so your franchise, your brokerage, if you're your own brokerage yourself, you may have your own rules, but on the base foundation, as a participant of the MLS, you're agreeing to follow and abide by these rules. And as a member, you should expect the other 45,000 members to be abiding by those rules. You may go above and beyond, and that is great. But what we're trying to do is provide a base foundation of behavior and operation within the MLS. And it shouldn't blur any lines, because the rules have been around for as long as there's been an MLS, because there need to be rules to enforce, mainly for data standards and data security and data integrity. Those are the three main tenets of an MLS, because y'all need the data to be assured that it's accurate. Otherwise, you won't use it.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for explaining that. Hugo was asking, essentially asking, how do you report this? So if you are trying to report an MLS violation in regarding to not canceling a showing appointment, really, or any, and I want to talk about more violations here in a second, but really any violation, how do these get reported? But in particular,
for the no call no show one, that is going to be just mlsqa@har.com. Send an email with your documentation, the things that we want. We want the showing report for that day that shows they have a confirmed scheduled appointment. If you have a super lockbox, we want the lockbox number so that we can look at the get key activity. Any other information you want to provide, and then please make sure to include the address and the MLS number. We had a couple complaints come in last week where they reported everything except the actual address of the property. It creates an extra back and forth and slows down processing.
Very good. Thank you for that. So in regard to MLS rules, I'd like to know, and I tend to ask you this every time you come on, because sometimes things can change, but for the purposes of helping our members not violate MLS rules, what are some of the most frequently violated rules that you're seeing that your team is monitoring?
Well, unfortunately, as the more things change, the more they stay the same in this area. When I started in 2003, the number one violation was estimated closing date is in the past. And here we are in 2025, and the number one violation is estimated closing date is in the past. Estimated closing date accounts for 60% of all the notices that we issue from our system. And the good news is that it's fully automated. It looks at 5 days beyond the estimated closing date. Has it passed? Yes. Then it sends an email and notice to the member to get it corrected. Why is this important? Because the next pending contract is waiting for your sale to close so they can use it with their appraiser to possibly confirm the loan that they're trying to secure for that property. And that's why we enforce that rule so heavily. And we even get complaints from agents 1 or 2 days after the dates in the past. And we have to break it to them that they have 5 days by rule to update the listing before we notify them. But it's fully automated. The number two one is insufficient number of pictures. We were the first MLS to require photos back in 2004, 2005, and it's still our number two. The good news is it's only 8% of all of our notices. The downside is that we issued 68,000 notices last year. So with 8%, you're still talking about 4,000, almost 5,000 listings were issued a notice. And this means they didn't have photos for 10 days after they listed the property. I think this is a irresponsible thing. In most cases, obviously there's justified scenarios, but for the most part, a property should have pictures when it goes live. And this is not coming soon. Coming soon listings are not required to have photos while they're in the coming soon status. This is only after they've gone to the active status. Number three, this one rises and falls with the market. Physical property description violation. This is where you have either financial incentives or contact information in the public remarks. The financial incentives should only be in the agent remarks to be discussed between realtor members. And then contact information is just prohibited outright because this is syndicated to all IDX websites that your peers don't want on there. And then tax ID and compliancy review are our last two. Tax ID is normally when there's more builder listings that are in the MLS. They don't know their tax ID when they first list it. We find their tax ID and then we notify them that they need to update that information. And then compliancy review, which we've kind of hit on earlier, is anything else in the MLS. Anything else, you can use compliancy review and report it to us. So anything that you see that is inaccurate that you see on a listing can be reported, and we will enforce and work to get it corrected.
Very good. And actually, you read Anna's mind. She said that basically saying, on a lot of builder listings, she sees incorrect information. She's saying, how is that allowed? Isn't that deceptive? So it's not allowed, is what you're saying.
No, it's not allowed. The problem is that unlike some of the information that we can validate on a tax record is not validatable. Like, even if we get the tax ID for a new construction home, it's most likely just going to be the vacant land that's on the tax record. So we don't have any of the improvement data yet. But if you confirm anything's inaccurate on a builder listing, report it to us, even up to and including the map. That's one of the things that we've started to see more complaints on builder listings, is that they'll say this is a property in Katy and the map pin is in Lake Conroe. Obviously, we know that those are not anywhere near each other, and it needs to be fixed, and we will enforce it.
Very good. Anne Marie asked if you could just remind agents. You mentioned coming soon status, so I wanted to say that remind agents that you cannot show in coming soon listings. So the rules are a little different there, if you want to touch on that.
So coming soon listings and withdrawn listings are the two statuses where you cannot have showings. And it's a very simple solution and remedy. If you have a coming soon listing and suddenly you're like, oh, I want to do this showing, make it active first, then do the showing. That's the easiest way to comply with the rules. If you have a coming soon listing where you suddenly want to do a showing, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do the showing or even an open house, because you can't schedule an open house on a coming soon listing either. Is that you make the listing first, that takes 5 seconds, and then you can carry on with scheduling a showing or an open house. And if you ever catch someone doing a showing on a coming soon listing, and you have the information, again, it sounds like a broken record at this point, send it to us, and we will look into it, because that would be a violation of Rule 2, where it has the note that says coming soon listings cannot have showings.
Very good. Mike Wong just commented, "I'm guilty." I don't know which rule he's guilty of violating, but he's guilty. We love that, Mike. One more thing I'd love to hear from you, because you are in and out of the MLS every day. You're working with our tools, our website every day, and you're interacting with our members every day. I'd love to hear some recommendations on tools that you think MLS subscribers should be better utilizing.
Certainly have those. The first one is our most recent tool, is Rent Spree. We talked about it a little bit earlier for tenant screening. It's a new member benefit we added to MLS Standard last July, and you can get their credit check and their income verification. The credit check is $39.99 and the income verification is $10. That's something that the tenant that's applying would pay, not the listing agent. There's no fee to the listing side. The best thing I like about Rent Spree is that if you select Rent Spree, it automatically puts an application link on the listing. There's nothing else you have to do. They set it up, they post it and make it available, and then the buy side can start using that link. And it's been so well received that we're now working on an Apply Now link to use with Rent Spree on HAR.com. We're working to bring that later this year, and our communications will have an update as soon as we can say more. But I'm happy to see that. I did a check last night, and 20% of our active rentals are using Rent Spree, and then we've had 7,000 rentals that have selected Rent Spree that have closed since last July. So you can see there's some different usage being taken up on there.
Okay.
The next one, Kubicasa. It's a favorite of mine. I've scanned my house, I think, 3 times now just to see if it would give me a different result. And it's great. You sign up for the product, you walk around your house within less than 5 minutes, and within 24 hours, they send you a PDF and a JPEG of your floor plan. Now, they have some upsells. So the basic thing is free to get a free floor plan. And the layout is normally very close to 100%. The dimension sizes and square footage is a variance a little bit. But considering all you're doing is walking around your phone like you're doing a live stream, and then 24 hours later you get a very professional CAD a rendering of your home that I couldn't draw if I tried. That's nice. And then the upsells you can look at, but you obviously are not obligated to do that. So anything under 5,000 square feet, there's no charge if you're taking the base floor plan product from them. And then finally on that if you do upload a floor plan PDF, and you don't have to use Kubicasa, you could use any other product, HAR.com will have a special button to indicate that you have a floor plan. And consumers want this. This is a consumer-driven demand, and that's why we addressed it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is one of your favorites. It's Forewarn.
Mm-hmm.
The Forewarn app is used by, I'd say, just over 30% of our members. And I would love that to get above 50% of our members. I think every member should have it installed on their cell phone by default. This app scans names and phone numbers and provides you the identity, the phone number, address history, financial indicators, property records, and criminal records of the information you put in. And every time I've talked about this in person, there have always been a couple people that never knew about it. My first inclination is always how. And then the second one is let's get it on your phone now, so that you have it. And normally someone else is the opposite end of that person who wants to give a testimonial right there at like Women's Council of Realtors or other networking meetings I've been to, talking about how it saved them from dangerous scenario X of going with someone who had 26, convictions on their record, and they were looking to show a home for them. Well, that obviously changed their mind. So I can't recommend Forewarn enough, and it's a free member benefit to all MLS standard subscribers. Yeah. And then finally, I'm going too much.
No, you're great. You're great. There, I just wanted to share Bricides, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said that's the best app for realtors. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then the other one, this one again, going back to member suggestions, is Showing Smart. So Showing Smart started as a member suggestion, as a feedback to an acquisition that was being made. They wanted something that was more in our control. So, Bob led the way, and our technology department really put something together very quickly. I mean, we're talking less than 6 months from conception to delivery. It was Showing Smart, and now 85% of our showings are happening through Showing Smart. And what a great product for our members to control. And to Rule 2.0.1 that we talked about earlier, canceling a showing in Showing Smart is incredibly easy. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your desktop. There's nothing that makes it difficult to cancel the showing. Great.
Thank you so much. So Rent Spree, Kubicasa, Forewarn, and Showing Smart. Those are Nathan's recommended tools for MLS subscribers. I know people were saying, can you type it in the chat? And I see a few people are. So that was the list that Nathan mentioned. Nathan, this has been awesome. I mean, we've gone a little over 50 minutes at this point, but I could keep talking to you for another hour if you want. And you know what? Our members, maybe we need to have you on more often, because our members, there's still questions that have not been answered. I promise that I will get with Nathan after today's show is over and make sure, for those of you that did ask a question that we didn't get to today, I will make sure we get an answer for you in the chat. So I apologize for that. But Nathan, this has been fabulous. Is there anything else that you want to share with our members today?
The same thing I like to end with is that feedback is the key to making our system as successful as it is today. We review anything our members send us, no matter what it is. Any crazy idea. If you aren't sure of the idea and you don't want it to be out in the broad system, just email me and send it to me, and we can discuss it. Any change you've ever seen in the system starts with a member who said something. And we want to continue to be able to deliver the product that our members want and what makes their business work best. So you can use the top right corner in Matrix. There's a feedback button there that sends it to us, or harfeedback@har.com. I truly appreciate these opportunities to interact with our members. And I look forward to coming on more often, because quite frankly, I could go for another hour too.
Yeah, and Veda said, Nathan is awesome. Yes, have him on more often. So I think we're going to have to listen to you, Veda. Well, I wanted to read just a couple more quick things, because you said to email you, and Sandra did ask, what is Nathan's email address? So how can people get in touch with you, but also your team?
So my team would be mlsqa@har.com. We do our best to review emails within one business day. We always ask that you remember there's 45,000 members, 80,000 active listings, and 10 staff. So there's kind of a ratio there. For me, my email is pretty easy. When you've been here more than 20 years, you get one name for your email address. It's Nathan, Nathan, @har.com.
All right. Easy enough. Thank you so much. And just one more quick comment from Mike Wong, who chairs our safety task force, he said Nathan is an incredible asset to HAR members and the safety task force. There is so much stuff he handles behind the scenes and across the board, and I couldn't agree with Mike more there on that. Thank you so much, Nathan, for all you do, and of course for your time this morning as well.
Thank you very much, Christina. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, I just want to remind everyone that today's show was sponsored by Oakberry Trails. Wake up knowing the day ahead brings you an easy commute, and that coming home means getting closer to nature. At Oakberry Trails, you'll find yourself tucked away in the countryside, yet moments away from your favorite craft brewery and brand name shops. You can visit oakberrytrails.com for more information. Nathan, once again, thank you so much. I see the thank yous coming in, and I'll be sure to share all of those positive notes with you after this is over. So thanks again for your time today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that is it for this Member Focus Monday. Next Monday, we will be joined by the Global Advisory Group Chair, Jane Bird. She's going to talk to us of everything we need to know about global real estate, and they've got some great stuff coming up this year and some events that you're going to want to hear about. So be sure to tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.